What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today what I want to do is go over some of the top cores and team compositions right now in Regulation C for competitive play. So we've had the Fort Wayve Regionals come and go. We've had a bunch of online tournaments, and now is a good time to just take a step back and say, okay, where is the meta right now, and where is it going to be moving forward, right? Because we still have a bunch more regionals coming up. We got EUIC in the upcoming week. So now it's time to just evaluate and reflect and see what are some of the strong cores and compositions right now. And that's what I wanted to do in this video, is just, give you a sense of what to expect in some of these upcoming regionals and tournaments that you're going to try and play in if you are going into some of these events, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the first archetype here. Okay, the first thing I want to look at is these Dragonite ChienPao teams. And usually they like to run a little bit more of a balanced core. So basically, like, the Arcanine, Amoonguss, Fluttermane, Palafin stuff, right? The FAP core, as I like to say, and then you just add your two fillers with Dragonite ChienPao, right? So in this case, the Dragonite can either be like Choice Band, it can be Lumberry, or it can even be like an Assault Vest like you see over here. This is like a sample idea. But basically the way the team plays is, you have Dragonite, the Arcanine, and the Palafin to just capitalize off of the ChienPao's Sword of Ruin boost. And then in the end game, you just have the Fluttermane to clean up, and then the Arcanine and Amoonguss just give you that defensive backbone that you need to provide support for your offensive but rather frail options. So of course the Arcanine having Will-O-Wisp and Intimidate support, the Amoonguss providing redirection and being able to create space with Spore. So in this regard, like, it's a very, very standard Dragonite ChienPao team, very balanced, very ideal for what you're trying to do. The other version of something like this is, instead of the Dragonite, you have just the Dragapult. So this is basically Justin's team, right, where the Choice Band Dragapult instead of the Dragonite, and it's just a same kind of balanced core with the Palafin and the Arcanine Amoonguss, right, in terms of your Fire, Water, Grass core. So either way, I feel like it's a very strong team, and it's easy to pilot. Well, I shouldn't say easy to pilot, but it's relatively standard in terms of how you want to pilot it, and defensive pivoting, trying to get positioning, so this way your sweepers are able to deal as much damage as possible, and then sort of like pin your opponent finally when you're able to get it down. Then you have another variation over here with the Great Tusk Talonflame stuff. So basically the idea here is, of course, with Great Tusk being next to Talonflame, you can Earthquake next to it, but you can also Earthquake next to your own Dragonite. And then you have the ChienPao over here coupled with the Dragonite, again, that little duo coming in here. But you can also technically, if you want, you can switch in your ChienPao and then go for the priority Brave Bird from your Talonflame. It deals a lot of damage. So you can even lead like Talonflame ChienPao for that matter, right? Then you also have King Gambit stuff. So like King Gambit with Terra Flying is now also able to be next to the Great Tusk here, and then you can just Earthquake next to it, and it's like a Choice Scarf set over here. And then the Fluttermane is just like a relatively standard boost energy stuff. So I feel like this ChienPao Dragonite stuff with Great Tusk, this is another like trio that you're able to capitalize off of in terms of like hyper aggression rather than more of the balanced stuff. And you might see this again with like the Sun hyper offensive stuff, but ideally these are three versions where, like, okay, you have a Dragon type, you have a ChienPao, and then you just have like a balanced core with the Arcanine, Amoonguss, and Palafin, Fire, Water, Grass with the Fluttermane. And Fluttermane's on pretty much all these teams just because it's such a strong special attacker that you can have, to just come into these end games or even lead and then just put on a bunch of pressure immediately and start trying to control the game, right? So this is our first archetype, so let's move into the next one. All right, the next one is the Sun Hyper Offensive kind of team. I call it Sun HO, and basically it revolves around Lilligant Torkoal, plus, the Dragonite ChienPao stuff again, along with Great Tusk. And then you'll also get a little bit of variance in how the Sun teams are generally operated, but this is one kind of Sun team where, again, the Lilligant is able to provide pressure with After You and then Torkoal Eruption stuff, or you can just take advantage of Chlorophyll and just go for that that fast sleep powder kind of play, right? And Wide Lens over here is an interesting item, right? You just make your moves a little bit more accurate. The Torkoal here, sometimes you can see like a support Torkoal set with like Yawn, Overheat, Earth Power kind of stuff with the Eject Pack. So this way, after the Overheat, it's able to switch out. But that kind of Torkoal also just applies, supportive pressure by just being able to switch in and click Yawn stuff. So that's also a great way to play it. The Great Tusk over here is also, again, once again, Choice Scarf. The Flutter Mane is Choice Specs. Okay, just being able to deal a bunch of damage, right from the get-go. Power Gem is really good into like the opposing Arcanine matchup. So that's always great, very, very much appreciated. ChienPao Dragonite, once again. This Dragonite also comes with Tailwind with the Lumberry set. So this way, you can make Great Tusk relatively fast and just click Earthquake next to it. And then the Flutter Mane, you could just go Modest and not have to worry about being slower than other Flutter Manes because you're also trying to capitalize off of the Tailwind from the Dragonite. So this is one kind of offensive pairing. And then, don't forget Torkoal with the Drought. You're able to provide the Photosynthesis boost for both the Great Tusk and the Flutter Mane. So both of these can get like either special attack boost or attack boost. And then, they just become relatively strong, hard-hitting Pokemon, right? Some other variations is just like what we did. You might even see Trick Room on this Flutter Mane just to enable the Torkoal, for example. But this is one kind of hyper-offensive team. Dragonite, ChienPao, Great Tusk with the Lilligant, Torkoal, Flutter Mane stuff. That's one way. And then some other variation, like right here with Patrick Donegan from Fort Wayne Pedons, as we also say. He has the Chi-Yu variant instead of the Great Tusk. So this way he's relying more on the combination of the Chi-Yu Flutter Mane stuff, just to provide a little bit more special attacking pressure. And then, you still get the Torkoal Lilligant combination and of course Dragonite ChienPao. So, what's interesting with Torkoal is, again, because of the Drought, now the Chi-Yu's fire type attacks are hitting even harder. And at the same time, the eruptions from Torkoal are also hitting relatively harder because you have a Chi-Yu. So if you can position that, then I would do that. But if I was going to do that, what I would do is maybe even just consider putting Trick Room on the Flutter Mane, try and set that up. Torkoal now has, free reign to click Eruption. Then in the following turn with the Trick Room up, switch into Chi-Yu and then just go for Eruption, plus Charcoal / Chi-Yu shenanigans there. So you could even do that as far as like another type of variance. But the other kind of Sun teams that don't use Lilligant Torkoal, they're actually doing this. They're doing Murkrow with Tailwind, Sunny Day stuff. So now you're just enabling your Flutter Mane, Great Tusk, Chi-Yu, and then even the Brute Bonnet here. So Brute Bonnet comes in here. It's able to provide a bunch of pressure, because Adamant Nature, you're actually able to outspeed Dragapult, even if you're 252, but not the speed boosting nature. So in that sense, you're going to hit very, very hard and still be very, very fast because you outspeed everything under Tailwind. Bullet Seed's going to hurt a lot, same with Sucker Punch. But you may not even need to click that, right, because of Tailwind. The same thing with the Chi-Yu, you're able to maybe even go for like a bulkier set with this kind of idea. But again, it's Citrus Berry. Assault Vest Great Tusk is also very interesting. Again, you get a little bit more bulk with the Assault Vest. You can't protect, but again, are you really trying to protect when you're just trying to be aggressive with the Great Tusk over here? And then you also have the Goldengo. So like, remember with Great Tusk and Goldengo, anytime you click like Close Combat or Headlong Rush, you're getting your defenses dropped, right? But then you just implement the Haze and you can remove that stuff. You can remove Intimidate drops. So if people want to, use their Arcanines or Gyarados and intimidate your Great Tusk and Brute Bonnet, you can just haze away those Intimidates. And a lot of people forget that, especially the newer ones. And then, of course, you also have the Bailout Haze against potential Dondozo matchups, right? So that also exists here. So Murkrow with these kinds of Sun teams, with the Sunny Days is actually really, really good because sometimes the Torkoal gets walled and it's a little bit hard to position in certain scenarios. So just having another offensive option like Choice Specs Goldengo, for example, just applying a bunch of pressure with Make It Rain, Shadow Bolt stuff is actually really, really smart. So shout outs to Pedons over here. And then this next variation doesn't use Goldengo. It actually just uses Gyarados. So this way now is another Pokemon where you're just able to Earthquake next to, get that Intimidate support. You get a little bit more speed control with Thunder Wave, of course. You have the Steel option just to try and snipe potential Flutter Manes. But the other 5 are relatively the same. You do get Life Orb Chi-Yu, so now you're exerting even more pressure on their Sunny Day, which is actually very, very funny. The Flutter Mane is Specs, of course, and this is a Choice Scarf rather than an Assault Vest variant. I think both of these teams are very, very good in what they're trying to do. Slight variance and, of course, the items and Terra type options, but as far as like the core, it's pretty much the same. So that's the way you want to play Sun in this format. Either you do like Murkrow Sun with Sunny Day, or you do the Torkoal route with, Lilligant in that sense. All right. So, yeah, let's move on to the next archetype. The next strong archetype is, of course, what we call Baxcalibur Balance, where you have, once again, the the FAP core of the Arcanine, Amoonguss, Fluttermane, Palafin, and now you add the Tinglu. So now what the Tinglu is able to do is reduce special attack damage, and that's able to help out the Baxcalibur and your own Palafin. Just hide behind the Tinglu as well as the Intimidate support from the Arcanine, and then just deal a bunch of damage, thanks to their support. And the Tinglu, of course, adds another dimension to the team, because now you're just clicking fissures sometimes and maybe even connecting them, of course. Then you have the pretty good chip damage from Ruination. Heavy Slam here is just able to snipe potential Fluttermanes, as an example. But again, it's another way to try and play this team. This used to be like Assault Vest Iron Hands, which is still very much playable because the Iron Hands combos well with the Palafin because you're able to pivot with the Volt Switch and get it back in after the first turn, for example. But the Tinglu just gives you another kind of toolkit that the Iron Hands just doesn't give you, right? Again, Fissure, Ruination, great chip damage overall. Baxcalibur and Palafin are just able to click their signature moves after Ruination because everything's been chipped to 50%, right? And of course, the Fluttermane plays Janitor Duty. You're just able to clean it up. You can even do like Amoonguss Fluttermane, in certain matchups as a lead, and just apply a bunch of pressure with your Dazzling Gleam, and then let the Baxcalibur plus one of the other homies in the back just finish off the game, right? As another kind of thing. But with the Arcanine being the Intimidate option and the Palafin being the Water option, that's one way to try and do this. The other way is doing this route where now you have the Gyarados as the Intimidate option, but being the Water type, and now the Fire type, not the Arcanine, but now the Chi-Yu, because you've already accomplished the Intimidate stuff with the Gyarados. So again, another type of way of playing this. And the other four options stay the same, but again with the Gyarados, rather than the Palafin, now you get Intimidate support. You get another flying type that can also be used against an opposing Tinglu, so they can't click Fissure against you if you have Terra Flying, of course. You get Thunder Wave support, and then in this case with Fiona's team, you also get Helping Hand. You can also just put Protect there in that slot. But Thunder Wave and Taunt can be relatively helpful in certain scenarios. This Chi-Yu is Scarf, relatively common in terms of like another item you want to use. We've seen Berry and Life Orb so far. Scarf also makes sense. So this is one way to try and play, Baxcalibur balance, as we like to say. So yeah, both of these are the two common ways. Either you have the Arcanine Palafin stuff, or you have the Gyarados, and then you just add Chi-Yu here, and now you have a combination of Fluttermane Chi-Yu, as a potential lead or even potential endgame, for example. Just the only thing with this is like sometimes things get a little awkward when you have Tinglu plus 2 special attackers. So it gets interesting, but other than that, I don't really have a problem with it. I think I like the other version a little bit better, but this is still pretty good in what it's supposed to do. All right, so those are my two versions of Baxcalibur balance. Let's move on to the another strong archetype. Okay, so next up is the idea of the Glimmora Wo-Chien stuff. So we made a rental like this, and we even made a squad for Fort Wayne. But just utilizing these two as a starting point for a team is also relatively strong. This is Moxie Boost's team, and I believe they made it with Joe, because I can see the Morning Sun is over here. But the idea again is to inflict poison stuff with the Glimmora. Oh, this is Corrosion actually. But then after that, you can just click Leech Seed on your opponents and then just wither them down to where the point where your Palafin and your Fluttermane are just able to clean up. And then also the Garganical as an endgame is actually relatively annoying, because if they're already poisoned, or if they're still like already Leech Seed, and then you bring in the Garganical and just click Salt Cures and protects and recovers over time, then they just win, right? Because then you can't break through, and you can't really switch for all that matter. So this is actually really, really cool kind of archetype to try and utilize Glimmora Wo-Chien. The other way is to do something like this, where you have the Ceruledge and the Gyarados over here. I like Ceruledge, Gyarados, and the Wo-Chien stuff. I think that's a good trio that not too many people talk about. So the idea with the Ceruledge, of course, is it's really good into the Arcanine stuff. And then, you can also pick up potential Fluttermanes, right? If you can just go for the hard-hitting Shadow Sneaks, especially after a bulk up. And then the Tinglu also helps support the Ceruledge, right? Because then you're just reducing special attack damage against it. Same idea over here with the Glimmora Sash over here, because with Corrosion and Spiky Shield, you're just able to poison stuff relatively easily. Click Mortal Spin, click Spiky Shield, just click Protect, which is basically a Protect, and let the poison do its thing. And then the Amoonguss just provide redirection support for the potential bulk up stuff. Gyarados is a support option here, and this has Whirlpool. So with this, you're just able to trap your opponent and then just keep allowing them to keep taking, chip damage over time. And then you always have the Assault Vest Tinglu over here to provide support, and then just go for some of this coverage move, like Payback and Ruination, just to chip things down a little bit. So another way to really utilize Glimmora on some of these squads, and you'll see it again in Dondozo teams, because Dondozo also relatively appreciates Glimmora stuff. We just did that video with Neil, and they were running Dondozo Tatsugiri with Glimmora and Fluttermane in the back engine, right? So I feel like these are always going to be like relatively good squads. They're very passive in how they want to play, because they're a little bit more positional based. They're relying more on chip damage, but that's really how you want to play some of these squads. Okay, next up is Dondozo, again, like we were just mentioning with Glimmora stuff. So basically, again, also comboed with the Fluttermane, you're just able to exert a lot of pressure and then create space by going for Mortal Spins and then Spiky Shields, just to alternate protects and let the chip damage take effect. The Dondozos are now usually Terra Grass, Terra Blast, just to be able to smash the Palafins. Lumberry with Rest is actually relatively good and relatively smart. Then you have, the ChienPao Dragonite. We already know what these guys can do. And of course, the Fluttermane's a relatively easy set to do. So I like this kind of 6. I feel like they synergize relatively well. And again, Dondozo very much appreciates the ton of offensive pressure that these guys can go for, right? Because these are big hitters. And then in the end game, you can just bring these guys in, and they've already exhausted a lot of some of their resources to be able to deal with some of your other threats. So then Dondozo Tatsugiri is kind of free in that sense. Then you have this version with Alex Collins. So again, they're also trying to utilize the Glimmora stuff along with the Wo-Chien support factor with the Leech Seed stuff. And then from there, you have Chi-Yu, which also can benefit the Wo-Chien and the Glimmora. Just a bunch of special attackers. Either you're going for Pollen Puffs, you're going for your own special attacks because you're a Specs Chi-Yu, and then your Assault Vest Glimmora is just able to put on a ton of pressure as well, while having good coverage. And then the Iron Bundle over here, same thing. Iron Bundle Chi-Yu is actually very scary because you have speed control forever, and then you can just after that Icy Wind, you can just click Heat Wave stuff. Choice Specs Heat Wave hurts a lot, especially with the Beads of Ruin. Encore is relatively good against the Garchomp Tailwind stuff, but yeah. Then you already know what Dondozo Tatsugiri can do. So then the other variation is, of course, actually this is more or less the same kind of variation, just with Tailwind Dragonite rather than like Choice Band stuff. Actually it's the same team. Never mind. Okay. I think I've said my piece on the Dondozo stuff, right? I think that was the main one. Yeah. Okay. So now let's look at the next one. All right. So another thing is the Maushold ape kind of teams, right? And when I say ape, I mean the Annihilape. So again, you're just able to redirect incoming attacks and help set up your Annihilape with potential bulk ups. You can also beat up into your Annihilape and then just make it do a bunch of damage with its Rage Fist because you've already taken good damage there. Defiant is really good against the Arcanine and Gyarados stuff that are still running around, so Annihilape can really take advantage and start putting on a pressure immediately. Then you already know what you're getting with Chi-Yu, Fluttermane, and Iron Bundle. These three are like one of the strongest special attacking cores that we have right now, just because of Beads of Ruin, supporting everyone. And then of course the Wo-Chien stuff, this is almost like your active form of Intimidate, where the Tablets of Ruin is just reducing physical damage, and then you're just able to Leech Seed things. And then if they want to reset the Leech Seed, they have to switch, which forces them into awkward positions in that sense. So this is how you create space with this kind of team. You use the Leech Seed stuff and force them to switch. Otherwise, they just keep taking chip damage over time, to the point where either the Maushold can clean up, not the Maushold, the Annihilape can clean up, or any of these three options can, potentially finish things off, and after they've been ranged after taking so much Leech Seed over time. The other kind of way you can do this is just slap on the Tinglu here. So Annihilape, Maushold, Tinglu is another kind of core, and then you can just simply slap on Dragonite, ChienPao along with Fluttermane. So the Tinglu helps almost everybody here except the Fluttermane, reduce the special damage, and then the Maushold here just provides overall bulk with Friend Guard, and then the Dragonite with Choice Band, and Friend Guard just does a bunch of damage behind that protection, and then you can swap in the ChienPao anytime. Or just combo well with the ChienPao, because you're both doing great physical damage. You just need to pretty much take advantage of your choice band here and sort of ruin, just smash. But this is another way to try and play the Maushold Annihilape stuff. I always I like the 6. It's relatively standard in terms of like how many lines and how easy it is to play. Not too much involved here, but again, pivoting and positioning is still important. Because you're still going to be in scenarios where like, yeah, maybe you want to switch that out and preserve it for the end game, for example. But I feel like these are the two main kinds of cores of Maushold and Annihilape. There are some variations, of course, but at the very least, you'll still have like the same 3 or 4 starting mons, in my opinion. Okay, the last kind of archetype that I want to leave with you for this video is at the very least the Garchomp stuff. So basically, this is Joe's team that he brought to Fort Regionals. No Ruination Pokemon needed. You have Garchomp, Kingambit, Fluttermane. The Kingambit is able to pin a lot of slots, especially with the Sucker Punch stuff. Then you just have the Tailwind support from the Talonflame, the Icy Wind from the bundle, and then the Mungus Redirection Spore. Your very standard Fire, Water, Grass Spore comes over here. So this is one way to run Garchomp stuff. Another way is to, again, put it with Talonflame, and then also combo it with Gyarados. So this way you have another target that you can Earthquake next to. The ChienPao over here is actually relatively interesting in terms of its Terra type flying, which is actually not that bad in itself, because like, think about it, ChienPao is 4 times weak to fighting. So then if you implement a flying type, then you can kind of resist that with the flying coverage there. And now you can also get some benefit next to Garchomp, where you're just able to Earthquake next to it. The Goldango, you know where you're getting there, especially with the choice specs. You're clicking Make It Rain with the Talonflame, speed support, and then just, dealing a bunch of damage there. The trick is also great to deny other potential setup stuff, and just force them into a lock, and then maybe force them into switching. That's always relatively interesting. Then the Gothitelle also gives your option for Trick Room. So this is one of those Tailwind Trick Room teams, just in case you need it, right? There's no real like priority on this team, so you're gonna need the speed support. And the ChienPao actually has haze too, so that's also relatively nice against some Intimidate dropping, or even like against Dondozo stuff. So, and you can also haze away your debuffs, on your Goldango. Very interesting team. I like it a lot. Another kind of variant is to add Tyranitar to this. So now you have Sand Chip going around. You still get Talonflame. You still get Fluttermane Iron Bundle. Now you just add ChienPao over here, and now your Garchomp, your Tyranitar, and your own ChienPao is dealing extra damage. Same thing with your Talonflame. Of course, we mentioned that before. But this is another way to run it, and it's also interesting to see that this is rough skin. I think that's totally fine, makes a lot of sense. But I'd like to maybe even see Sandbell over here, and now you got a little bit of a sand team going on over here, right? You already have the Fluttermane Goggle, so that doesn't matter in terms of the sand. The only thing in terms of like getting the sand, with this Focus Sash broken is of course the ChienPao. But in that regard, all right, you got to take your profit with your losses, as I would say. But these are relatively standard ways of trying to run Garchomp. You do need the Talonflame stuff. Whether or not you want to pair it with like Kingambit, Fluttermane is another story. But you also have the Gyarados option, and then over here you have like bundle / Tyranitar stuff. So yeah, we basically went through all of the common archetypes with this video as of right now. And again, there are still like some variations of some of the stuff I've shown you. Maybe they have 4 of the same mons but 2 other fillers. That's okay, but that doesn't change the heart of the core of the team, right? Like, I can still safely say like this team is a Garchomp Tailwind team, right? And then over here, even though there's a differences in some of the Pokemon, in that regard, you can still say this is still a Garchomp Tailwind kind of squad. And then the Kingambit adds another element, but again, same idea here. This is still a Garchomp Tailwind squad. Gothitelle and Goldango are additional interesting options, but for the most part, this is a Garchomp kind of team. All right, so if you're trying to go to Fort Wayne, if you're trying to go to EUIC or some upcoming regionals, or some online tournament play, these are the kinds of teams that you're expected to see at the higher level, tournament level. All right, and if you're interested in building a squad or a team for an upcoming tournament or regional, and you need a little bit of help with the team building, check out coaching on the channel. It's a tier 3 sub. If you look at the video description, there is a link, and if you check the comment section, there's always a pinned comment with the link where it'll take you to join the tier 3 sub to the channel, or simply look for the join button on every single video on the channel. And then again, that will do the same thing as the other two, bring you to the link where you can sign up for a team building coaching session with me. All right, that'll be do it for now, folks. Hopefully this gave you a little bit of help and insight in your building process for Regulation C. We'll be back in another one in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good night.